and welcome back to another video feature of the Immersive Worlds Handbook. Today I am at the newly opened Pandora, World of Avatar at Disney's Animal Kingdom in Orlando, Florida. A very innovative new theme land that of course is based on James Cameron's first movie and presumably a series of future movies, Avatar. So let me take you on the tour today. Okay, so in this video today, I'm focusing on Pandora, the World of Avatar at Disney's Animal Kingdom in Orlando, and I had a chance to take in the park and this exciting new theme land when I was at the IAAPA Attractions Expo in November of 2017. And I have to say, it's an amazing theme land. So in this video, I want to take you through some of these sights and sounds of what you experience. You know, these kinds of images, you see these plant forms that they've created, so numerous throughout the experience, whether you're going on Flight of Passage or just taking in the theme land. You see this interesting collection of real plants with the faux plants, just a miraculous design in terms of what they spent, the creativity, the resources, and so forth. You can see it's the place to be really in Orlando right now in terms of theme parks. And so I got there an hour before opening and the line was already this crazy. So it's something you experience because of all this excitement. It's also a very, as you'll see, a very small theme land. There's only two rides, the boat ride, the Navi, and then the Flight of Passage, which a lot of people claim is the greatest theme park ride of all time. And I will do a separate video just on Flight of Passage and a video on lines, because my wait to get in from the start of the line to actually boarding the ride vehicle, and it's a pretty short, 5-minute ride, it was a 4-hour and 15-minute wait. So you can see the kind of demand, and if this continues, the question I think becomes for the theme park guest, is your time well spent, being that you're going to have to circumnavigate these kinds of crazy crowds? And it's something you experience when you go to Pandora, the World of Avatar. But the payoff is this kind of stuff, this just incredible approach to the structures that you see in the James Cameron movie. And the entire world that you see with the Navi and all the characters and so forth. Now, I think one curious thing as you think about this intellectual property being used in a theme park like this, just like the Harry Potter one. With Harry Potter, we've had multiple movies and multiple books. With Avatar, that movie that Cameron did, now it's been so many years, and he keeps saying, you know, they're going to turn out another movie and so forth. I think the pressure is on. In a lot of cases with transmedia, you're getting a lot from the first media form. So with Potter, there's a lot of foundation in the books, and then that translates into the films. And then that foundation translates into the theme park. With the Pandora, located in Animal Kingdom, which kind of connects to Pandora, you know, in terms of this idea of ecosystems and conservation. We'll get into that in this video as well. The challenge is you don't have as much foundation that the guest has going into the space. Now there is an incredible amount of excitement for visiting the theme land, and particularly for going on Flight of Passage, but given the crowds and given some of the challenges of navigating the space, the question becomes to what extent will that impact the guest's desire to be a part of the story. This is one of the curious things, and I think in order to create a connection to Animal Kingdom, which is a zoo theme park hybrid, you have to do some of this. This allows kids to look at some of the fictional plant life that you experience within this world, and I think it's very clever. You also see this in the Flight of Passage ride, where there's a focus on Navi conservation, and if you saw Cameron's movie, some would say it's a little too, the storyline is a little too much, you know, indigenous people being threatened by the technological society coming in to mine and take over their resources. But that's kind of part of the story that goes into this. So I think having conservation as a part of this is pretty smart, because that's one way that allows you to connect something that doesn't directly relate to you know, the theme park proper, which is more focused on zoo and, quote, real animals. It reminds me a little bit of how History Channel or Discovery Channel over time started to feature shows that really didn't relate to kind of their core identity, which is maybe on the one hand an identification of being able to diversify your audience, and on the other hand a sensibility that you can try some new things out. And I think that's what's going on here at Pandora, because yeah, these are fictional animals and fictional creatures and fictional plant life, the flora and the fauna, but you can bring it to life in a three-dimensional sense using the creativity and the resources of Walt Disney Imagineering. So in the video today, I'll take you through some of the highlights of Pandora, and perhaps at the end of the video in the comments section on YouTube, you can offer your thoughts on what you got out of visiting Pandora, the world of Avatar, at Disney's Animal Kingdom. So let's take a look now inside the park itself. Okay, as we begin the tour here, I'll give you some voiceover that I'm doing in the studio here after looking at the footage. Again, I visited in November of 2017. Pandora, the world of Avatar, opened in May of 2017, so relatively new when I visited the park, and a lot of this footage here is waiting for Flight of Passage, which is certainly an amazing ride, and you should check out my video focused on Flight of Passage. As I said earlier, I waited 4 hours and 15 minutes to get on the ride, and perhaps that influenced my sense of how amazing it was. I'm showing you right here are some of the these are the typical Disney moments. If you go to other Disney rides, going back to Pirates of the Caribbean, the theming even within the queue house of a Disney ride is always beyond, just at their own level of standards in terms of the level of detail. And these are, again, some of the faux plants that they've created. And just look at the patina on the surface here of some of these structures. Get some close-up, a real sense of texture here as you're walking through the line. I have to say it was a long wait to get on Flight of Passage, but I so appreciated the fact that they had applied this level of detail in terms of the queue house, and I think that's always what distinguishes Disney from other theme park companies. Now, certainly, if you go to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, you see this similar level of detail in terms of taking a theme land and really trying to do everything possible in terms of immersing the guests within that theme land. Just some of the structures here, and again, you could look at the design schemes, and if you know Pandora, it's been a while since I've seen the movie, you're probably familiar with some of the aesthetics here in terms of what has been created, ranging from lights to speakers to fans that you'll see as you walk through the queue house. And there's another sense of just how Disney always puts you in the world and also sometimes takes utilitarian objects like fans, like sprinkler systems, and there's a fan right above me right there, and they even make that stuff fit in, right? So I think another theme park company on a smaller budget would take something like a structure like that fan and not think of how it fits in aesthetically with the design principles of the theme land, or in this case of the intellectual property of James Cameron and Avatar. And by the way, as we look at some more of the amazing features here walking throughout the theme land, when we talk about IP, intellectual property, it's really another side, I think, of where theme parks are headed in terms of their theme lands. The two right now, and Star Wars and Galaxy Edge and everything that's coming to more Disney theme parks, and I'm just getting on my app there a little bit, trying to look at some wait times as I'm going through the line. But what's going to happen in terms of, I think, the future, the arms race of theme parks that we see, say, between the Harry Potter IP, intellectual property, the Avatar here at Animal Kingdom, and of course the Star Wars IP that will be coming in many Disney parks. Sorry about what I'm trying to do here is, as I'm going through the line, I'm actually trying to figure out some strategies of what I'm going to ride next. And probably in a future video, I need to talk a little bit about some of the new technology available for queuing through parks and so forth, but that's what's going on here. But going back to intellectual property, I think this is really where theme parks are headed. I did an interview actually on the upcoming Star Wars themed hotel that's going to be totally immersive, like from start to finish, just outstanding. And I did this interview in a travel journal, and I was saying that on the one hand, it's great, it's positive, it's a thing that we should all look forward to because we can fully immerse ourselves in some of these fictional worlds that we've seen, read about in books, or seen in video games, on film, of course, with Star Wars and Harry Potter and Pandora. But the downside, I think, is then maybe you become too reliant on the particular intellectual property at hand. Now here we're walking through more of the queuing area, and this is just some of the detail. Again, you see what you expect in a Disney theme park ride in a theme land. Just look at some of the petroglyphs and just the level of creativity. Reminds me of, I'll mention Cars Land a little bit later at Disney's California Adventure, but there's one little bit in Cars Land where there's a cave and there's like a petroglyph, and this is like taking that and really expanding upon it, of course. So again, this is part of the Disney approach. It's really leveling, taking the level of detail and just expanding it and embellishing it in theme and variation. We're looking a little more outside here at one of the waterfall features, seeing the sunlight here. I'm just panning around looking at everything again, really amazed at just what level of detail went into the construction of even the queuing areas. I'll mention this later, but when you look up at some of the sites here at Pandora, you get this real sense of verticality that I haven't experienced really at any other theme park, save maybe Phantasialand outside of Cologne and Bonn, Germany, but kind of the verticality there is for a different purpose. But one of the things I think that we're reminded of when we think about intellectual property is just how expensive it is to deliver some of the deliverables that guests expect. And you could see throughout the theme land here what they've done, and it's just absolutely amazing. Again, looking upwards, I mean, it's one of these things when you look at the structure, you ask some questions like, how did they build that? How did they make that structurally sound? How did they make it safe? How did they just imagine the designers, Imagineers sitting down and drawing this out or modeling it in computerized software and so forth. Just amazing to think about the level of artistry, and not to mention just the construction itself. I mean, just imagine building this and how long it takes and the level of skill needed in terms of the contracting and the subcontracting and everything. Now, moving into the ride, this is just a shot from the Flight of Passage, and again, I'll do a video just on that for you to look at. There's a gift shop when you walk out, and then there's this the canteen restaurant. Didn't get a chance to eat there. It was very crowded, but you can see they've extended that theming within the restaurant itself too. So again, in a theme land like Disney creates, they're just so known for doing these sorts of things, which is just embellishing with intellectual property, as I mentioned earlier. If you're not one of the key players, if you're not Universal or Disney, maybe Six Flags, though Six Flags doesn't traditionally focus on this kind of theming and storytelling and narrative development, more the thrill rides, of course. But it costs so much to deliver on some of the things that they're doing here. The estimates that people threw out when Disney constructed this over the last few years was somewhere near $500 million, so $500 million to create this theme land. You can see where it is right there. The map still says coming May 27th, and it just shows you a sense of scale and the size of it relative to the other mini theme lands in Animal Kingdom, which is a great theme park. I mentioned Cars Land, and I think Cars Land, when they started to revitalize California Adventure, has that similar sense of feel. Pandora is, I think, better and more immersive, but it has that similar sense of feel where you create these vistas like they did here outside the amazing ride that you can experience, which is basically taking Test Track, but really embellishing it at a greater level. There's one of the vehicles. I think the villain, the bad dude in the Pandora or the Avatar film, like used one of those. There was a battle at the end, showing a little more of the theme land. I think what we'll do next is maybe I'll pull up the audio a little bit. You'll get some audio cues. Sound is a big thing. A lot of the music from the film was used here. There was like new soundtrack moments or snippets created for the theme land. So again, Disney is really thinking about the all immersive experience. There's a lot of sound stuff going on when you walk through World of Avatar. I'll show you some drumming stuff. There was performance. You can look at the Fast Pass entrance and the line for Flight of Passage. Again, it was totally inaccurate the day I went. It was not showing 4 hours on there. I think it was maybe 2 hours or maybe 3. And some of the wait times again for this ride and also the Navi River Journey, which I have to say wasn't as incredible as Flight of Passage. But the long lines, I think, are to be expected because this is a relatively small theme land. It gets very compressed. The walkways are fairly narrow, so moving people in and out through these narrow areas of the theme land, it's fairly challenging. And with only two main attractions, and then basically a gift shop, some small snack shops with sodas and stuff, getting a look at the waterfall, and then the canteen restaurant I mentioned, it's going to be very hard to deal with capacity. And Navi River Journey is a more of a continuous loader ride, so it's not going to have the wait times of Flight of Passage. Look at even the ground here. You're seeing some of the relief here, the textures that they've developed here on the sidewalks, the different various footprints of the fictional animals of this theme land. I just thought another nice feature. Again, every little bit of space that you experience in the Disney theme land. And here are those drums. We could hear a little bit, people playing. Yeah, kind of cool. I don't know. I mean, this is always one of those things. It's like a little bit of interactivity, but is it amazing, or is it just kind of a noisemaker thing? I don't know. So it's one of those things that is, I think, an attempt to, there's another, I think in Africa, there's another drumming section, not electronic drums, but so maybe it's a riff off of that a little bit, and maybe guests really like it. It's fine, certainly, but I don't think it's an amazing form of interactivity. You get a level of detail here again. Just look at some of this. They have these really cool plants, sort of interactive plants that shoot water at the guests, and I think maybe I have some video of that coming up. Again, that sense of verticality as you look up. We'll pan over this way a little bit, look at some more of the features. So this is, as a theme land, I'm trying to think of other theme lands out there that have so few attractions. And I think it's one of the things that I wonder if there are plans, I don't know, to expand some attractions because it is relatively new, just opened in 2017. And if that's the case, that would really help, I think, with the capacity in this theme land, because it's very hard for the guests to move through the spaces, and it's hard for Disney to really get people to queue and move through if you don't have that many attractions in the given theme land. We're looking a little bit here at the some of the ecological stuff that you see in the theme land, and it's one of the things I really liked about how they made Pandora a fictional theme land, and certainly there's the Dino Land going back, so it's not like Animal Kingdom hasn't had the fictional theme lands as opposed to the more zoo theme lands. But I think it's one of the ways that it makes this really interesting and also meaningful, focusing on conservation issues with fictive fauna and fictive flora. You also see that repeated within the queue house of the Flight of Passage ride. So for me, this was really creative, and I think in terms of the Disney storytelling, how they are so effective at it, it's one of those things that, again, Disney does so well creatively, thinking about how to tackle a problem like this where you have the real and the fictive flora and fauna that they're trying to merge together in this theme land. And of course, every single zoo out there, in a sense, has always had, going back to the zoos, hundreds of years ago in Germany, have always had a sense of constructed or faux nature. And when Animal Kingdom opened, a lot of social critics critiqued Disney and said, they're using these false barriers protecting one species from another. But every zoo has done that for hundreds of years, so it's nothing new at all. Again, we're looking upwards here, and for me, what was amazing was seeing the cloud-like structures. If you saw the Pandora film, what made it, I think, so effective in 3D was that sense of verticality and imagining, flight on the banshees and so forth, the creatures that the individuals rode around on, the Navi did, and so forth, and the others, the human who had the avatar. And you just get a sense of the vistas here. You also get a sense of what I've mentioned throughout this video, that combination of the real and the fictive flora. I think it's so creative when Disney can take real plants and simulated plants, this lichen-like structure, And as you're walking through the theme land, you probably have moments where you say to yourself, is this real or is this, fabricated? And I think it's something that Disney does so well. There's this seamlessness of the different types of plants, the real and the fictive here. A French post-structuralist would go crazy, but just look at this shot here. That's just absolutely amazing. Just look at that visually, what that looks like. Again, it's just absolutely amazing to think about what Disney does in terms of some of the great features here at Pandora, World of Avatar. And as we close out the video today, I'll show you just a little more footage I shot on site. And again, in the comment section on this video on YouTube, I'd be curious to hear your impressions of Pandora, because I'm always interested in the guest perspective. When I used to work in the theme park industry, it was something I thought about as a trainer. And for me, visiting the World of Avatar, Pandora, was really inspirational. Again, we're moving into that world of intellectual property and transmedia. Those are some of the shooting plants we're looking at in this area here. But it was just really inspiring to see what you can do, what you can accomplish in terms of visual three-dimensional storytelling in a theme park. Again, you have to be a player like Disney or Universal to deliver on some of the things that they deliver on here. The Imagineers and designers who've created Pandora World of Avatar, as we look at some of the guest interaction here, I mean, should absolutely be commended. It's just a beautiful theme land. It's rich storytelling, albeit it's a little small and it's a little crowded, but I think over time, if they build this out a little bit, it can be one of the great theme lands in any theme park around the world. I hope you enjoyed the video feature today here looking at the theming of the newly opened Pandora World of Avatar at Disney's Animal Kingdom in Orlando, Florida. Please come back for additional video features of the Immersive Worlds Handbook.